All we've ever done, all we've ever done is got up on stage and sing what's wrong with the country. We've never perpetrated violence, we've never wrecked and disrupted the country, we've never done what the unions do, what other people do, and what happens to us. The promoters make money out of us, the Sunday trash mags rip us off right, left and centre, we crap and hype, and we get beat up in the flaming streets. And that's what I want to say, and that's all I want to say.
Over the last 12 months, punk rock has become almost a battle cry in British society. For many people, it's a bigger threat to our way of life than Russian communism or hyperinflation, and it certainly generates more popular excitement than either of those. The punk groups have been set upon with words by clergymen and members of Parliament. This week's papers have carried reports of clashes in Chelsea's King's Road, and the Teds have promised the punks a battle at Margate later this year. Tonight, we shall be seeing punk rock in action and talking to some of its followers. But we'll also be hearing from those outside the movement, from Pastor John Cooper, for instance, who sees punk as degenerate and evil, and from city councillors in London, in Glasgow, in Birmingham, and from Newcastle, whose councils have banned punk rock concerts. On the other hand, some outsiders, like John Peel, the Radio 1 DJ, believe that punk is an exciting musical innovation. But no doubt you have your own opinions, and we'd like to hear what those are, whether you think that punk is a threat to society, whether you think anything should be done about it. You can contact us now, while we're on the air, by phoning in on 061, that's the Manchester code, of course, 061 236 9494. And apart from being on the screen, that number's also included in our programme details in the Radio Times. Well, our story reporter this week is Eric Robson, who had his introduction to punk rock at one of the best-known rallying places in Britain, Manchester's Electric Circus.
I want a new world, I want it with you. What's your new love? Stay back through. I need you some time to spare. Put it to my hand and take me there. Welcome to the new world. Looking for a cheap bill.
It's not bloody music, I don't do its music a lot. As far as we're concerned, we're stating what's wrong with the country. If we get beat up for it, that's bloody hard luck, you know. We're never going to back down.
Into the future, says me. I want it for my baby, says me. It's gotta be a new world.
You can get up to 50 people in the street and say, have you seen a punk rock concert? And they'll say no. They still think it's disgusting. All they've read is in the papers like the Sunday People.
Here comes that feeling again. Yes, I dump your mother face, you're inside. And if you some time to spare, let me take my hand and take me there. Into the future, says me.
I mean, there's people abandoning us that they're saying that I'm vile and obscene. Do I look vile and obscene?
No! I gotta start now!
Look at this. It looks like it's just come out of Rizzler for the day, doesn't it?
You won't go and see it, I tell you.
Bottles for plastic punks.
I wanted to do something for me. Because look at me now, I'm nothing.
That's what punk is.
You can sort of go in and really enjoy yourself, you know, jump about a bit, let yourself go. Why not? Can you explain to me why you come to the Electric Circus?
Because it's the best place where they put punk rock bands on. It's just got a great atmosphere. That's about it.
Denise Lloyd, 20. She's part of a comfortable North Manchester family and by no means the dead-end kid of punk rock legend. She has a job, with her mother working at the local factory.
Mum managed to get me a job working at Courtaulds in the offices. So I've worked there for the last 3.5 years because they accept me. They never say anything about me having different coloured hair or... because they know me now, so they don't really mind. Everybody that's into punk rock have got their own image. I sort of wear black most of the time. And I get out nearly all my things from a jumbo sale. And if there's something special that I want, my mum will probably make it for me.
I help her to make the clothes that she wants to wear at these punk rock concerts. Because if she had to have them made, she'd have to pay quite a lot of money for them, which she can't really afford. So I fall soft then and help her to make them.
can you do something about the top of them? Because, you know, when I go out in them, they always keep coming down the zip, and that's why I have to keep putting them pins in them.
Keep busting this zip open.
Well, I have to do because they keep putting pins in them, look at that.
Well, I'll have to put a piece on top and a button in there.
Yeah, and I want them tighter and all.
I'm not making them any tighter.
You have to do, look.
You won't be able to sit down in them.
Yeah, but they keep going slack, we're wearing them because we're sweating.
You know, last time I took them in, you couldn't sit down in them.
I know, but they went all right after that. Once I sat down in them a couple of times.
I'll put this zip back in for you, and then I'll have to, if you're in a hurry to go out tonight in them, I'll have to put that other piece on.
No, I'm not wearing them tonight, that's why I give them you.
We should dress normal like any other girl. But it's just a craze that she's into, and as long as she's not doing anybody any harm, don't mind.
This one's for the people that are into modern fashion, right? Right! You just wanna be yourself, and I wanna be like anyone else. I got a hairstyle to be so good, and you get lost on your end of bird.
When I first went into punk rock, my hair was black. Everybody seemed to be having black hair at that moment. So I just sort of followed on and had my hair done black. But then I thought, well, no, why have it black? Why not have it something else? So I went and tried to have it done blonde. But I had to have it bleached about 10 times to try and get the black out. And after that, it had gone a bit, you know, really wispy. So I thought, well, why not do it with colours? But it was costing me about £5 a time, keep having colouring done. So I thought, well, I've heard about other people doing all these different colours, and the next night they come out in a different colour, and I thought, how are they doing it? So I asked one of the girls at work, and she said, oh, when we were at school, we used to do little bits of our hair with cochineal, and so I tried that, used different colours of cochineal.
People stop me in the factory and they'll say to me, what colour of hair has your Denise got this week? And I'll say, oh, pink or blue, you know. They'll say, oh, and she had such beautiful hair before she started dyeing it.
Oh, she's always going on about that. What will people say at work? You can't go in with your hair like that, you can't go in with this on, you can't go in with that on.
Denise has never come to any harm yet, although once or twice she's told me about incidents that have happened that I worry about then, you know, things that she tells me.
Yeah, but the papers have just built it up, haven't they? And the same with the violence, and they're just making something really big out of it, and it's just not.
Yeah, but it's gone worse, don't you think?
How do you know? You've not been to any of the concerts?
No, I haven't, but I think things have gone worse, violence, don't you? Since
why? Because you've read about it in the paper?
No, don't you think that's caused more violence?
Well, this is it. Yeah, it's causing violence because of what they're putting in the papers. You get people coming up to you and saying, oh, you're one of these punk rockers, aren't you? I've read about you in the paper. I mean, they haven't. They've not read about me. They've read what the papers have put and what papers have wrote about other people. Well, not me, but they'll start on me because of what the papers have put.
Yeah, but
it's
you
just
can
not right
understand
at
how
all.
me and your father feel when you're walking down the street dressed like that and with all that makeup on and that. Surely you can understand why we feel ashamed.
Why? What? Why do you feel ashamed?
Well, to me, you just look totally
To you,
ridiculous.
I'm not society. To you, I'm not the same as everybody else.
Just totally ridiculous.
I'm just not the same as everybody else. Just because I don't want to follow like everybody else.
You don't think you look ridiculous?
No, and my friends don't think I look ridiculous. And they're the ones that matter. Allan plays for the worst. You know, they're really what you could call a punk band. They've got quite a bit of following already, and I think they've only done about 3 gigs. We were sat in a pub one night, and all of a sudden you get a pin and straight through his ear without any ice cube on it or anything. Blood was just pouring down his ear, and we were just sat there cringing, you know.
Allan Deaves is married with a 4-year-old son. He's building up his father's motorcycle business.
I wouldn't call it rebellious. So all I'm doing is expressing myself, which everybody should have the right to do. I'm doing it different than somebody else. This country to me is finished. There's no way it can get any better, it's just going to get worse. There's kids leaving school now, there's nothing. You know, they're going up Doyle. And it's, say when my little lad, when he leaves school, there's going to be nothing for him. This business that I've got, if it works, well, he can come into that, so he's going to have a, you know, he's going to have a future. But there's thousands of kids that isn't. You can see it when you're at Electric Circus. All them kids that hang about outside. You been a good lad today?
Me?
Yeah. All our songs are about life today. You know, just slums, stuff like that, you know, being up Doyle. They're all about life today. And that's what it is, and people should face it, not hide away from it, which is what everybody's doing. You're not sitting next to me.
No.
You're Leon.
What did you do today?
Walked past play school and forgot Leon.
You did?
He was sat there on the table with Leon, all on his own.
On his own?
He says, oh, you've come then. I love my child, you know, I look after him, I care for him. You know, he knows where we go when we go out, we tell him.
This is it, if people think you go and you've anything to do with punk rock, or anything at all, you're just not capable of anything else. But as they see you, you know.
They probably don't think we're capable of having a nice little boy in a nice home, you know.
I think you live in a hole somewhere.
Live in a slum or something like that. And horrible people.
They say it's a free country. The Sex Pistols should have the right to free speech. If somebody produces a pornographic magazine, even though it might be absolute trash, he has a right of free speech to produce that magazine and say something. You know, they're trying to ban this and trying to ban that. Erin read in one of the papers the other day that the police officer that policed the Reading festivals is trying to ban all rock music. You know, that's pathetic, that. You know, you're not allowed to listen to music.
I'm not disgusting. I don't find myself disgusting. I just go out to enjoy myself, you know. And if people put that down to being disgusting, well, they know where they can go, yeah.
Paul Doyle is 16, a refugee from London. Apart from his contacts with punk rock, he leads a solitary existence. A loner, just about surviving on the £19 a week he gets from the dole.
The last job I did have, I got a little bit of stick, you know, because I had my hair ginger. You know, and for a half-class lad to have his hair ginger, it's a bit funny, you know. Give you some strange looks. I'm a dole now. I'm going to enjoy myself. The gear, well, it's very free and open, you know, I just feel really relaxed in it. I just wear it because I like it, you know, there's no sort of reason why. I think it's great, especially for the summer anyway. A lot of ventilation's in it. When you live in a flat, you find yourself that you don't eat so much living at home because you're used to 3 meals a day, right, and snacks in between. You come to live in a flat, and eventually you form your body not to eat that, you know. 1 meal a day will do you, you know, something like that. Because you've got nothing else to sort of, the next meal's going to come tomorrow because you've got no money today, you know. One thing you've got to learn when you're living on your own, you've got to have friends, you know. Because if you're just sitting, you know, you're just going to crack up. You're going to take an overdose or something. You're going to do something stupid. You just got to be on the move all the time, you know, something like that. I just turned 16 last summer, and I was looking through a sun, and I saw in the middle page, sort of like punk, you know, new sort of wave, and I really liked it. Something inside me said, that's it, that's you. So I went into punk, and I really enjoyed it. I always liked fast music, and this was it, it's really fast and plenty of energy.
There's some really good punk magazines going on, well they call them fanzines. There's one guy in Manchester called Steve Burke, and he started writing what I think is the only one in Manchester. There could be more. It's called Shy Talk, and he sort of builds up everything that's going on around Manchester.
The first one we did was really bad. I mean, the photographs never turned out. We didn't have any idea of how to do it. We just did it. And it turned out bad, but we sold 150 copies. There's a couple of people, who've said they'll finance me. People like Buzzcock's manager. He said if I needed any money, he'll help me out. And I could pay him back out of what I make out of it, you see. I pick up a lot on the grapevine, interviewing bands, reviewing gigs, just talking to the band afterwards and picking hints up, and, it slowly works out. The magazine came about mostly through Buzzcocks and the Drones. They told me to start my own band up right from the start, which I never did because I'm tone deaf. That's a simple reason. But I wanted to be part of it, so I started a fanzine off. It wasn't until after I saw Sniffing Glue and a couple of other fanzines, and Manchester didn't have one, so I decided to start my own off, which was very, very hard at first. It's slowly getting better and better now, but it takes a lot. And then I was never very good at English, so I am learning a lot through it. This will be the new fanzine, which is out this week. It's ready now. It should be being sold at the end of this week. This is about the best one so far, But you always have a pin up in the back and stuff like that. So we should sell quite well, this one, I hope.
Last thing I ever wanted was all these kind of really mad punk rockers coming out, appearing all over the place. The press are down on them, everybody's down on them. But you talk to them, they're all really nice kids.
It's like
music's really good.
It's really like a Pandora's box. The whole thing, to a certain extent, has been created out of the media, but it's got out of hand, and the media now don't know what to do with it. They can't cope with it, and unfortunately, because they can't cope, they're screwing up a lot, and they're causing a lot of aggravation.
You can't explain to anybody what punk's about unless they've actually been to a concert and seen it for themselves. But it's the same with the papers. They don't know what they're talking about. They just, about half of them have never even been to a concert. They just write what people put, probably picking out the worst people anyway.
Like this Johnny Rotten thing coming up, getting cut up. Well, he didn't really get cut up bad, a couple of grazes. The papers again blew it up, Johnny Rotten razored,
There's an article in the Sunday People recently which was absolutely ridiculous, And since that article, the trouble is building up.
This thing here, which was in the Sun, the Clash gig at the Rainbow, it's totally wrong because, okay, a few chairs were smashed up on purpose, but it was fans trying to get to the front who wanted to dance and everything. People were standing on chairs to get a better view, and the chairs collapsing. So they just get thrown on the stage. Morning papers, that reads, punk wreck, fans riot. Which is totally wrong. I was there, I saw it all happen. From my point of view, nothing happened really. It was just kids enjoying themselves.
And I want it for my baby, I want it for myself. Don't you help me, mister, I can't help myself.
When Denise goes out, I'm ashamed, and my first thoughts is, I hope nobody that knows her sees her going on the bus to these punk rock concerts. My fears are that you hear about punk rockers getting beaten up, and I know once somebody waited for her outside a club and she had to jump on the wrong bus to come home because she knew that they were after her, and this kind of thing really worries me. I'm always afraid that she'll come home with her face slashed or something like that.
As a manager, we've never had any trouble from the punk bands at all. You see, like, people phone and they're saying they've heard this, they've heard that, but they haven't actually come down and seen it, you know, and that's what I tell everybody. You've got to come and see what is happening.
This is about the best thing since the skinheads, you know, it's been out since then. It's been boring.
It's just different, it's life, it's not boring, sort of straight and like people can just be themselves and mess about.
You know, all these horrible ordinary people walking around, they just follow each other in fashions really. One goes out and buys a flared skirt, so they all buy a flared skirt.
A lot of people think it's trying to wipe the system out and put something in its place. To me, it isn't.
Some people around here, punk rock could be something from a seaside resort.
The music's blaring away and you just jump and dance and you can do what you want, you know, you can freak out. And no one minds. And you can dress how you like as well. Like if you want to wear just a plastic bag over it or a pair of underpants and walk in, no one will mind, you know.
I see it as fun, new exciting music. You've had rock and roll with the Teddy Boys, with the mods and the skinheads and everything, and this is just a new form. And the Soda Pistols, it really excited me.
I think I'll keep into punk rock as long as it'll keep my mind occupied, as long as I enjoy it, as long as I enjoy going to the concerts, which I am doing up to now.
We regard ourselves as disgusted people, disgusted with a lot of things that are going on around us, which is possibly reflected in the music.
It's been said throughout all time, if you don't understand it, kill it. See a spider crawling across one and you go, oh, and you don't understand what that spider's doing, so you stand on it and crush it. That's what people are doing.
Well, obviously punk rock's nothing if not energetic, but Bernard Brook-Partridge in London, having seen that film, do you really think that punk rockers are such a threat to society that you're justified in banning their concerts in London?
Well, let's get it quite clear, Mr. Trueman, we don't. We're selective about what we permit and what we do not permit. I don't like punk rock myself, and I don't feel I have to explain that or apologise for it. There are certain groups, however, not just in the punk rock field, I might add, whom we do not regard favourably in London, and I'm on public record as having said that within the law, and I want to emphasise that, I will do everything I can to prevent certain groups, whom I do not propose to name on this programme, from ever appearing in London again. What's wrong with that? I represent the licensing authority.
But presumably you take that decision on some kind of evidence, on some kind of past performance.
Yes, we do. I want to make it clear, however, that it's not a question of an MI5 blacklist, it's simply a question of acquiring information, and it's the cumulative experience of our officials as well as members. And there are certain groups whom we do not regard with favour and whom I personally will do everything I can within the law to prevent ever coming to London again. But that does not apply to all punk or all pop or all rock. Many of these kids are perfectly decent and nice. They cause no trouble. We have hundreds of rock concerts of one kind or another, pop concerts in London every year. The vast majority cause no trouble. Some do, and I'm out to stop them.
Can I now turn to Edward Hanson, please, in Birmingham? Are you receiving us, Mr. Hanson?
Yes.
Would you say you more or less see eye to eye with Mr. Brook-Partridge? Do you follow the same policy?
Yes, we do, exactly along the same lines.
It's not a blanket ban that you impose?
Well, you see, we have had punk rock in Birmingham, unfortunately, and we've been looking at some of it now, but they didn't show any of the damage that is caused by these punk rock groups, and now they're bringing out these freak punk rock groups. We've had them in Birmingham, but I can assure you, and I speak as a magistrate, a licensing magistrate, and a magistrate on the entertainment licensing committee, that we're not going to have this sort of punk rock again.
Have you been to a punk rock
Oh,
concert?
yes, we've had them in. I've been. I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And you see, the whole thing behind this punk rock is to stimulate noise, as we saw from the film there.
Oh, sure.
But
that isn't necessarily harmful, of course.
No, but they do so much damage.
Well, can I come to John Young in Glasgow, please? I'd like to fit him in. Mr. Young, have you anything to add? I mean, I think, for instance, you had quite a strong reaction from the kids in Glasgow when you banned punk.
Yes, we did. We have no laid down policy either in Glasgow concerning punk rock. We've had 2 applications in recent times. One was from the Sex Pistols, who wished to perform in a privately run entertainment centre in Glasgow. And although this entertainment centre had licensing approval for public shows, there was a clause included which said that if the local authority decided that public disorder could ensue, then they had the right to close down the premises for the necessary period of time.
Mm-hmm.
We also contacted other local authorities who had experience of this particular group, and as a result we decided that on this occasion we would refuse the application. However, we did grant an application for the Stranglers, and they performed in a local authority hall in Glasgow, and unfortunately it ended up in a mini riot. There was considerable damage done, and despite the fact that we had additional security at that particular hall, the situation was not very nice at all.
Yes,
so
thank you.
From that angle, it's on individual merit as far as we're concerned.
Mr. Stabler, you can't watch punk concerts in Newcastle either. Now, what was the basis of your objection?
Let's get the facts straight. The punk rock concerts are only banned in municipal halls. The Eldon Square Recreation Centre and the City Hall are 2 that come under my jurisdiction. Now, the ban wasn't a ban that was likely taking. I mean, the average adult can sort of protest with his feet. The average adult can go see a strip show or a blue film. But after their TV performance of the Sex Pistols, when foul language was used, after the performance with the Derby councillors and the obscenities that were written on, I believe, the dressing room in a London cinema, that my officials asked me what I thought of the concert as had been portrayed.
Do you think you've got the public of Newcastle behind you, or is this a council decision?
I said the decision wasn't lightly taken. We then called in the manager of the City Hall, and he said the bookings in the main had been made by youngsters in the 10 to 13 age group, and the decision was made when we discovered it was mere children that would be watching the performance and not an adult.
Yes, come in, Eric.
Pete Shelley, as a member of the punk rock group, the Buzzcocks, what's your reaction to what the councillors have said?
Well, I don't know where you get this mere children from, because as far as I can see, there's no mere children sitting around here. And usually mere children aren't letting on the doors, you know, because of the licensing restrictions. So 10 to 13-year-olds won't be getting in anywhere, so there's no need to protect them.
I mean, you're disputing what they're saying about the violence that has happened?
Well, no. Of all the violence that has happened, the guy from Birmingham said that it was up to, well, all the damage that takes place, and therefore they put a ban on it. Now, is it not better just to let the individual halls actually decide for themselves?
Yeah,
I mean, they talk about...
Could I come to you just for a second? The councillors we've heard presumably feel that they're being constructive. They're trying to create a better society, or preserve a society. What's constructive about punk rock?
Well, before I answer that, I want to just talk to the guy from Glasgow. He said there was damage done at the Glasgow concert. There's damage all over Glasgow. There's damage in the streets in Glasgow. Glasgow is a slum, you know, why isn't it doing something about that? Now, to answer your question, what's happening...
Could the gentleman answer the question, has he ever been in Glasgow? Because that is a gross inaccurate description of Glasgow.
I have relatives in Glasgow, I've been to Glasgow.
But it's a gross inaccurate description.
Leaving aside Glasgow's urban problems for a moment, what's constructive about punk rock?
Constructively, I mean, we know a lot of things wrong with society, and we go out and say it. Now, there's a case in point in Preston, in Garston rather, there's a woman trying to raise £750,000 for a cancer machine for Christie's Hospital in Manchester, and she's raising it on her own because the authorities won't give her any money. They spent £1.25 million last week on a new computer for the civil servants in the town hall at Preston. Us, the Buzzcocks and our group, we're playing a free concert charity to raise money for this woman to get money for her cancer machine in September.
So you feel that you're exposing defects in the society?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. There's so many things wrong.
Pastor John Cooper, whereabouts do you stand in these arguments?
Well, I'm the person that
deals with the wreckage 5 years later of all the fads that have come and arise up. And I feel that this is the payoff of a punk society. I feel that we have punk parents, we have punk politicians, we have punk clergymen, and we have punk sportsmen. I'm thinking of a young boy in a prison cell that crawled on his hands and knees toward me, 17 years of age. His mother wouldn't go and see him. His clergyman refused to see him. He took my hands, he wept like a baby, and he said, "Pastor, help me." I was able to take that young man and help him. I know of a young couple who came to me recently. The minister who wanted to marry them said, "Let's get down to brass tacks." He said, "It's £24 for the marriage and £6 for the bells." They said it wasn't the money, but just the fact that a man could talk that way. They came down to me for a free marriage, and I told them the positive gospel of the Lord Jesus Christ.
So you're not unsympathetic towards the situation that a lot of the punk rockers find themselves
I feel the situation is punk.
Yeah.
But I feel that it's not their fault.
Yeah,
I feel
but
we produced it.
if that's the case, I mean, I understand that when your local council didn't ban a punk rock concert, that you actually went down there and tried to stop it yourself by singing hymns outside.
No, we never went to stop it at any time. We went there with a very positive gospel message. I did ask the owner of the cinema if I could meet them, talk with them, take my deacons and elders around, and they refused us to do this. If you listen to my sermon on HTV and BBC, I actually preached a sermon that was positive and not negative. In fact, the BBC actually congratulated me for that.
Pastor Cooper, if I can turn this conversation around bringing Allan Deaves, I know that your feeling is that the society we're living in at the moment is in a slide. On the film, you said you couldn't see any future for this country, that society is in a slide. You seem to have some common ground between the two of you here.
Yeah, but if people wanted to go and see the pastor, they'd have gone to his church. You know, he doesn't have to go there. If they wanted to go and see a rock concert, well, they've gone to see a rock concert. Because people are frustrated and bored. The young kids of today, they're frustrated and bored. They're sick of being pushed around, told what to do.
Yes, I wonder if you take his point, Pastor, that people do have a free choice.
No, I don't take that point, because freedom and licentiousness are totally different. Freedom always demands discipline and law, and the model laws of God must be upheld. Our young people were out preaching last Saturday, and a group of young people sat on them and beat them up.
No, but not punk rockers. Well, look, I think we're getting... Look, before we get too far into the philosophy of the situation, what I'd like to do is to check up on the practical aspects, because we've been talking about the banning of concerts, and we may have had enough phone calls in now to give us some idea of what people feel about that, whether they should ban concerts or not. Mike?
Well, it's often said that more people phone in programmes with right-wing points of view, but on this, in fact, there's been an overwhelming no to the idea of banning public performances
even
of punk
selectively
rock. Overwhelming no, yes, I mean really sort of 20, 30 to 1, but they've been mainly young people. We did ask them a second question, which was, do you think that social standards in general are sliding? And this answer surprised me a little, which was, again, a very big no, but again from a young audience. So I think perhaps opponents of punk rock should take encouragement from that.
Have you had young people calling in as well? Have you been choosing from young people?
Really.
How do they say we should react to the situation?
Well, everyone says give it a chance, hear it first, that you don't understand it unless you actually hear the music. And it's a way for young people to release their energy. Only a couple of calls have said it's actually disgusting. And on whether it's any different from any other teenage phase, a lot of people said it's like the Teddy Boys or the Skinheads, but that it's actually a new and exciting musical phase as well that they're going into.
So even though they're young people ringing in, they're not trying to defend it as something permanent and important. They're saying it is more of a passing phase, are they?
Well, just accept it as something which is happening now, and that's how it is.
Right.
We have got Mrs. Dorothy Hodge on the line, who is Ian's mother. In fact, if you'd like to have a...
Yeah, I wonder if he knows that. Which phone is she on? This one here. Hello, Mrs. Hodge. You're Ian's mother. How do you feel about him being involved in punk rock?
Well, it's something that I can't really do anything about, but I don't think that there's any harm in it. I've never had any trouble with him with vandalism. He doesn't smoke, he doesn't drink, he's never caused me any trouble otherwise. I'm just ashamed of the way he dresses and that, but when I think, is it just, if they're not harming people and they're letting off their energy in those places instead of breaking telephone kiosks and things like that, are they doing any harm?
Okay, thank you very much. So you'd pretty well side with Mrs. Lloyd on that. Thanks very much indeed, Mrs. Hodge. Can I come to you, John? Where's John Peel? Can I come to you? Because you're obviously into the pop scene, and yet you're a little bit removed from it as well, perhaps a little more objective about it. Do you think that punk rock is any more than another pop music fad?
Well, I don't know. First of all, I'd like to ask, if I just can, before I answer that, whether the man up in Glasgow is planning to arrange for the banning of the Celtic Rangers football matches this season, as they certainly endanger public order, and a lot of people get hurt at those, and there's a lot of...
Let him answer that.
Could I make it quite plain? We will consider future applications for punk rock on their individual merits. We have not laid down a blanket policy on this, but nevertheless, the type of people and age groups, etc., that go to a football match, and Rangers Celtic perhaps have been over-exaggerated up here to a certain extent. Nevertheless, there's adequate policing.
Come on, that's just absolute nonsense. I'm a football
if you take
fan. Have you ever been to a Rangers Celtic match?
If you take Manchester United, Everton and so on.
So that make it right?
Here. But nevertheless, the audience tends to be of a younger age group, and we have to consider that. It's also inside a building in a very much confined space as compared to a football stadium, so there is a distinct difference there.
Okay. Wasn't it Hampden Park, where a bunch of people were killed a few years ago because they couldn't get out of the ground because something collapsed? Isn't that a building in a confined space?
That was Ibrox Park.
I'd like, if we can, John, to stick to considerations of punk rock rather than public order at football grounds. I mean, how does punk rock stand in relation to the other aspects of pop music? Is it really any different?
Well, it's certainly different in that it's 1977 and not 1964 or 1955 when the other big developments came along. And because society has changed a lot in the last 20 years, the music is more violent in a sense. The music is more powerful than it was, but the actual effect that it's having on people doesn't seem to me to be that radically different. I mean, when I was 15, 16 myself, which was when rock and roll first came along, I was considerably affected by it, and it did change my life, because it was the first time anything had come along that was genuinely my own interest, my own taste, something which excited me, which hadn't been implanted in me by my parents or by teachers. And for that reason, I was extremely grateful for it, and I think that the same thing is happening again now.
I've wondered from time to time whether punk rock is really anything to do with music.
Well, I think it's obviously the music is the thing which brings all of the people together in the first place, and a lot of the music has, I think, fairly important political comments to make, and those comments may be naive, but I think we've tended to believe over the years that because political expression was naive, that there was somehow something wrong about it, in the same way that we tend to find management people more plausible than trade union people because they speak better. I think the naivety in the music really has got very little to do with the sincerity or accuracy of the statements that it's making politically.
One of the things, too, that worries me, Simon Draper, I mean, you're one of the co-founders of the record company that's publishing most of the punk group records.
One of the things we did this Sex Pistols.
A lot of them, anyway. Well, I mean, one of the things that worries me is that the message is anti-commercial in punk rock, and here are you, a commercial business, exploiting it. Aren't you sort of torpedoing the movement?
I don't think it's anti-commercial. I think that there's been a very welcome return to small record companies putting out singles at low cost, without the big business, the big finance, the record companies involved. But I think all the groups want to be successful. I think they want their records to be heard by lots of people. I do actually think it's about music. I think that it's wrong to continue to see this as some kind of illness that's got to be treated. It's actually just a very healthy musical phenomenon, which has a lot of overtones of fashion and style, which at the moment seems to be more the more obvious thing
Well, I mean, they claim,
to fasten onto.
A lot of them claim, surely, that they are anti-commercial, they're anti-star, they're anti-fashion.
Some of them may be, but it's wrong to generalise in this way. I mean, most of the groups that are making records, for instance, the Stranglers, I'm sure, want to be successful on their own terms, of course. They don't want to be successful on the terms of the previous generation's rock stars, who they mostly despise and don't want anything to do with.
See, it's very important, I think, that in the last couple of years or so, the only bands that you can see or have been able to see in this country have been the very, very big stars, people who live in America. They come over here, they occasionally condescend at about 10 quid a ticket to come and do a concert at Wembley Stadium.
I wonder, another thing that slightly concerns me is that from the posters it does seem that the record companies and the promoters are cashing in on the violent aspects, and that you actually use that to publicise the records.
I don't think that's true either. In fact, I think that the groups are very often responsible. In the case of the Sex Pistols, most of the advertising material is the responsibility of the groups and the people surrounding them themselves.
Simon, may I break in that? Could I come to Mr. Brook-Partridge in London and ask him if he objects to punk rock and punk rockers? isn't he going about it the wrong way by banning concerts? Aren't you merely increasing the significance? Wouldn't it be better to leave them alone and hope they might go away?
No, there's no way we can do that. You must understand that we are responsible for public safety. That is a statutory obligation laid upon us by Parliament. Further than that, we were elected to exercise our judgment in these matters, and this we do. We are open to criticism, of course, as all public figures are, as to the manner in which we exercise our judgment, but the right that we have both the duty and the right to do so can't be denied. May I make this point? We seem to have got on to discussing whether punk rock is good music. Now, I don't actually give a damn whether anybody thinks it's good music or bad music. It's not what I'm concerned with. I have a view about it which would bore you rigid. What I'm concerned about is the manner in which certain groups, and I'm not aiming at the people in your studio up there, I don't know them, certain groups behave on stage, because you know and I know that every artist in whatever field of endeavour seeks to communicate with their audience. It is the manner in which they communicate which will decide how the audience behave in a confined space, as my colleague in Glasgow said, and that can lead to behaviour which is a danger per se, or which can lead to public danger or a danger to public safety within the confines of the building in question.
Okay, Mr. Brook-Partridge, yes.
Put back to Ian Hodge, who's actually in a group. Do you feel that you're irresponsible in your performances on stage?
No, we're not irresponsible. We try that hard to get over our message, that we haven't time to be responsible. We haven't even time to move, you know, because we can't play particularly well. We don't want to play particularly well. We want to get our message over. You know,
See,
so we haven't time to move about. Is it true that you wish the Bay City Roll is dead? Can we patch into this guy?
I think we're getting a long way from punk rock.
Just a minute, yes.
The Bay City Rollers.
See, I'm very much outside. I'm very fresh to this scene indeed, but I get the feeling that at least the adults have generated at least as much of the sensation involved as the kids. I wonder if that's true of the press as well, from your digging around over the last couple of weeks.
Well, I think it should be said, Brian, that teenage fashion and rock music have always been good headlines, and the only people who seem to be surprised that punk rockers got the headlines has got to the punk rockers themselves. A lot of the initial coverage was pretty lurid, with headlines such as "The Filth and the Fury" is one which springs to mind. The emphasis in recent weeks has changed slightly, away from general punk rock themes, towards the clashes between punk rockers and Teds in London, particularly on King's Road. They've been described as battles, they've been described as showdowns. This front page from the Southern edition of the Daily Mirror this week, I think, is typical of many of the headlines that have appeared surrounding punk rock, which says "War on the Seafront." But quite a number of punk rockers I've talked to feel that the trouble in the King's Road wouldn't have happened, or certainly wouldn't have happened so seriously, if it hadn't been for hysterical press coverage in the first place. And John Blake of the London Evening News wrote the first article about clashes between punk rockers and Teds in the King's Road. Are you not afraid that your articles about punk rockers in this situation have been an incitement to violence?
It is a worry. I agree, a lot of press coverage has been hysterical and slightly silly. The guys on earlier were right. But the King's Road situation was one which I simply reported. I talked to a number of people who told me this was going on, and there comes a point where you have a duty to report what is going on in the world. You can't just ignore it and hope it goes away. It wouldn't have been fair to ordinary readers who would have sort of seen this mysterious situation escalating in the streets, might have been caught up in it, and would have read nothing of it in their newspapers.
But briefly, in general, do you think the press has been fair to punk rock?
I think there's been an awful lot of hysterical and silly coverage, but in general I've had a reasonably fair deal, yes.
Oh, absolutely. No, I don't agree with that.
Alan?
If like, there's Teddy Boys in Manchester. I used to be a Teddy Boy for quite a few years, and I have nothing against Teddy Boys at all. They're into what they're into, and they're enjoying it, and I enjoy the music that they listen to as well. But you get one of them, that he reads in the paper that it's the latest thing to beat punk rockers up, and he thinks, great, what a good thing to do, let's go out and do it. Because the papers have put it there.
Could I pick up the point with you? I mean, do you think that, as John says, that in general the papers have been fair to punk rock?
No, you can.
No, they haven't.
You can take.
No way.
You can take.
I mean, even now, the Teddy Boys from Manchester are going down to London to fight with them on King's Road just because of what you've put in the papers. They didn't know anything about what was going on in King's Road until it was put in the papers.
There's some Teddy Boys that go down to the ranch, you know, and I mean, they really enjoy themselves. They're a punk on a Friday and a Teddy Boy on a Saturday. because I live around the corner from where they all hang out, you know, on a Saturday
John,
night.
can I bring John back in on
Sure,
this?
yeah, but I mean, you could use exactly the same argument about violence in Northern Ireland, for instance, where you've got mob riots. But listen, when people read about it in the papers, they think, oh, that's good, let's go and stone some soldiers, right? So would you suggest you don't report mob violence in Northern Ireland for the same reason?
You just generalise in London.
It's the way that it's reported.
It's not reporting, it's the way it's done.
Reported like this. One young pedestrian was knocked down, blood gushing from a head wound.
I didn't write that, but perhaps it was true, all right?
This is a write-up on what happened this last weekend in London. It was written up by three papers, the News of the World, the Mirror and the People. The News of the World gave a fairly straight chronicle of what happened and just said 28 teenagers arrested. The Daily Mirror splashed on the front page a picture of a little boy and said, victim of the punk mob violence.
I wouldn't defend that, right? Silly.
Do you know what's happened? The police moved in and charged a bunch of Teds. A little lad ran away and got knocked down by a car. It has nothing to do with the punk rockers. But the most hysterical one of the lot is this one here in the People, which says 60 Teds were dispersed with no aggro, which wasn't true. Then 150 punks charged down the street and attacked the police. They bit, kicked, punched, wrestled with each other. Fights went on in police vans, windows smashed, clothing ripped, blah, blah, blah. It's rubbish, it's hysterical, it's nonsense.
This week, for the moment,
Eric,
pause for a second.
We've got someone on the phone, actually, from the King's Road. It's Mr. Harris, I think. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Mr. Harris, you're the manager of a shop in the King's Road?
That's correct.
Now, what was your experience?
Well, our experience, actually, when I say my experience, I speak to the majority of the shopkeepers in King's Road, that the violence is very, very bad. You're getting loads of punk rockers chasing the teddy boys down the street, causing a hell of a lot of fighting, and in fact quite a lot of shopkeepers now on a Saturday afternoon are boarding their shops up and going home because they're frightened of getting their windows smashed in.
What would you like the press to do about it? Report it or not report
I
it?
think they should definitely report it. I think, something really and truly has got to be done to stop all the violence.
Yes. I was told by the Metropolitan public relations officer, the police public relations officer, that there were nothing like as many people there as the press said. How did you feel about it?
Definitely as many people. I mean, we see crowds and crowds of them pouring down the street on a Saturday afternoon.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Harris. Pete.
Before the papers reported it.
Well, I don't know. But one thing that certainly arises is that obviously the way that you dress and the way that the people behave on stage, and indeed in the audience, is, to a certain amount, deliberately outrageous. I mean, you deliberately don't conform.
We deliberately don't go to fashion.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're not going to conform, you're bound to get stick from those people who do conform. You're bound to outrage people.
But why take people for what they were? Yeah. If I came in the studio tonight with a suit like you, I wouldn't be classed as a punk rocker. If you know what I mean.
Well, absolutely not, but we all have our uniforms. If I came into the studio dressed like you, I wouldn't be classed as a television presenter.
If you notice tonight I wear this all the time, and I wear these jeans, I wear them for work just the same.
It's what you do, it's not your dress. Your dress is just, additional.
Sure. But I mean, you set out to a certain extent to shake people out of their complacency,
yeah, because
if you like.
Nobody knows you exist.
Complacency. It's all complacency, we have to
I mean, people have got to realise that there's something wrong with this country.
Why is nobody allowed to be
sit on their backsides and do nothing about it?
But if you're going to say that, you can't expect people to keep quiet about it. I'll come to you in 2 seconds, John.
I don't want them to keep quiet. I want them to get up and do something and make this into a better country. And instead, they just sensationalise it. They give us bad press and they beat us up. All
right. Yes, I'm sorry. Pastor John Cooper.
You gave an impression, of course, that I was for punk rock.
No, I don't think I did.
Well, I thought that you did. I'm sympathetic with the punk rockers. I totally oppose punk rock. What I was against at Caerphilly would be not offering them an alternative. And I believe that the trouble today is that we condemn them without offering them something better.
So do you think something positive could come out of their stirring things up and saying that things are wrong?
Yes, in a sense, if they would be offered something which is better. And we've seen many people. I've been in state prisons in America. I've been in prisons in Great Britain. I've seen teenagers in all kinds of situations. And may I just say this, that when they meet the Lord Jesus Christ, repent of their sins, and make him Saviour, they don't just get purpose for this life, they get purpose for the next. Now, what I'm saying with these young people is not just giving them purpose for a few years. You won't remain young too long. You're young people now, but you won't be young in 10 years' time. You need purpose for this life.
I think that may be. And you purpose for the next. Just let them come back, Pastor.
Yes, please.
I'm a Christian. So all you're trying to say, are you saying no, is that because